Hello and welcome back to this Damn Foot Idealistic Crusade. This video is a very interesting one because I am simply talking about one of my all-time Holy Grail pressings that I've been trying to find for my record collection. This is one I've wanted ever since I heard samples of it. This is the one everybody talks about, and it's one of those cases where you do have to get into the matrix cuttings and the matrix numberings on the both sides of the dead wax to find the particular copy you're after. So this is not necessarily a first British pressing, but slightly later, and it's a special matrix for certain reasons. And this, of course, is for the original 1972 UK release of the Bowie iconic masterpiece, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. And this is indeed the coveted 6E4E matrix. What that means is, of course, it's not the original pressing with the -1, -1 matrix, or not even the -1, -2 matrix, but the 6E4E came slightly later and has a slightly different mix on it, with the notable track being different is Starman. On here, Starman has what is known as the loud mix, where you have the little instrumental, almost Morse code sound section between the verse and the chorus, that little break, where you hear that little noise. In most versions, it is fully loud in the mix here, and is also, I think, that way on the single mix as well. But nobody knows why it was really substituted for this particular one. It's the version I prefer. I like hearing that. It's much more loud in the mix, but I heard some needle drop samples of this years ago and was just blown away at how good that sounded. And so this has always been on my list because I like that version of Starman, and I like the samples I'd heard. And a lot of audiophiles swear up and down this is better than the original pressing with the -1 matrix information. I have to say, now that I've actually gotten to listen to it, oh my goodness, it is, a little bit hotter than what you're used to. It's totally in your face, but in a beautiful way, because it's still laid back in a lot of ways. It could still be labeled as a premium sounding release, which is really amazing. Of course, Ziggy Stardust coming at this point in Bowie's recording career, it's not going to be labeled an audiophile release, but to me, audiophile doesn't just mean the purest of sound quality. You also have to factor in the performance and the actual impact of the recording and the mixing process. So it doesn't have to be, for me personally, the most clinically perfect sounding release, but if the impact is increased, that makes it just as much of an audiophile release for me as anything else. And I have never heard this album sound more alive ever. There are some that love the original -1 UK pressing, or some like the German reissue. The original US copy is actually pretty darn good, as are most RCA US original Bowie pressings. The Black Label RCA reissues can be pretty good. And then in 2012, the original engineer supervised the recutting for the 2012 anniversary box set with an all-analog cut LP, but of course that's based around the original LP, so it has the primary version of Starman, so it doesn't have the loud version we have on here. And I have heard that one, but unfortunately it went out of print so fast that I was never able to purchase a copy. I've heard that some printings of the current in-print 180-gram repressing do reuse those stampers, but apparently some don't, so you have to sort of play a guessing game if you buy a copy, and you just have to open it up and look at the dead wax information, because you could be getting that 2012 all-analog repress, or you could be getting whatever the latest digital cut is, which for me is totally pointless. So what was amazing about this copy is normally this 6E4E in good condition usually is going to go for between $100 and $200 easily. And this was really, a number of years ago, long before the vinyl revival really kicked into full swing and drove prices up. So chances are, if you were dealing with people who knew what this record was and about the various cuttings, you would probably be paying a little bit more than that now. Of course, trying to find one of these on eBay or somewhere, you have to ask about the matrix information, and most sellers aren't going to know about it. So when a seller lists it in the information for you, that's really helpful. So the cover is actually in really excellent condition. There's a little bit of ring wear that's peeking through, but other than that, the spine is in great shape. And then the iconic rear cover is in rather nice shape too. So again, I was really stunned. The seller really went the extra mile in describing everything, and had the matrix information in there. And the price was just so cheap for what these normally go for. I spent a little bit more than what I usually spend on used records. I usually don't go above $50 for any one particular album unless it's a very special case. This wasn't too far above that. The only problem here is, I don't know how well you can see it, but unfortunately Starman and Suffragette City have been had a marker line put through them. Again, it's at least very faint, but I don't know if maybe the original owner just wasn't a fan of those two particular songs for some reason. But I didn't even notice that at first. That's the only real blemish here on the rear. Again, you have a little bit of ring wear starting to peek through. But again, for this iconic jacket from an original UK printing, you would definitely pay a nice chunk of change just for a jacket in this good of condition. And of course, again, it's one of the most iconic record jackets of all time. So it's just beautiful to finally have it in this level of condition. Of course, have to show off the label with the classic orange RCA, which of course just screams original David Bowie. Of course, there is some a little bit of the label peeling, as you can see those two lines through there, but that's the only issue with the side 1 label. The side 2 label is perfectly fine. Trying to do this on camera without seeing what you're doing is always very difficult. I'll put in a close-up picture so you can see the matrices, the 6E and the 4E, and that's how you're going to be able to tell that you've got this particular cutting with the loud version of Starman and the basically it's a slightly hotter sounding mix of the album when compared to the original -1 on the very first cutting. And again, that's the cutting that all the later versions are pretty much going to follow. So this one really is an outlier. And of course, I would absolutely love to own a very first original UK pressing at some point. I've never owned the original US one. I've heard copies and I've heard friends who have had them, and they do sound really good, but I was holding out to try to get a UK one. Plus, you can't even find the original US ones at decent prices now. Even trash copies usually go for, between $30 or $40, or usually more than that. So it was crazy to see this pop up, and it was an eBay listing from a good-looking seller with great feedback ratings, and they had a buy it now on there. So that was the real draw for me. Everything looked good, and it had a buy it now on it, and I knew it would not last very long at that price. They had it graded at a very good plus, and I have to say, for most of it, it goes into very good plus territory. It is exceptional. If I got a record pressed this well now, in the current situation of multitudes of terribly pressed records, if I got a record that sounded as good as this now in 2021, I'd be over the moon. It would be my #1 record of the year in terms of pressing quality. This thing, it is amazing. There are basically the only issues with it. There are 1 or 2 ticks in the start of 5 years at the opening of side 1, which is to be expected for an LP of this era. And then in one of the tracks, there's a little bit of noise for about 3 or 4 revolutions right before the side change and into the start of the next song. So nothing horrible, but of course, hopefully someday I could get a perfectly pristine mint copy. Of course, when I have the disposable income to pay for perfectly mint dream Grail pressings of particular titles. It's surprising, though. I've been able to get a number of the original British Bowie pressings now. None in mint condition, but this one's one of the hardest ones to get, and particularly because I was looking for the favored 6E4E matrix, which, again, it does make a difference. This just leaps out of the grooves. It's great on speakers, it's great on headphones particularly, and I have never before really experienced this album this way. You put this on and you're in for the 38 minutes and some odd seconds full Ziggy experience. And also the original inner is included, and it's in pretty nice shape. A little bit of crinkling, which again is to be expected by this point in time. So side 1 is the lyrics, and then side 2 has the final lyrics for Rock and Roll Suicide with the band shots of Bowie and the Spiders at this time. If you're not convinced by this already, that this is an essential pressing to keep an eye out for, when you hear Mick Ronson really going for it, it just, his guitar just literally leaps out of the speakers. And I did re-listen to the entire album on headphones as well with my studio monitor cans, and man, it's just even better. Again, I've never been able to soak up the Ziggy Stardust experience in the way that I was on this particular pressing. So I'm so happy to finally have this. This has been on my top 10 holy grails for an extremely long time. Pretty much as soon as I got into collecting records hot and heavy and really focusing more on it. I still have a number of others. Of course, we always have more record grails to chase after, but this is one I've always wanted to find, and it certainly lives up to its reputation. I hope to someday do a shootout between this, a very first British pressing, and that 2012 all analog remaster, but I'll have to track those down first. I would like to try and see if that rumor is true about the 2012 all analog version getting repressed, so it might be available in some of those 180 gram releases. So with that, definitely leave comments below with your own experiences on Ziggy Stardust or various pressings of the album. Again, there are a whole lot of great sounding Ziggies out there. A lot of reissues with bonus tracks, and then again the 2012 box set, which unfortunately went out of print very quickly, which also had a lot of great bonuses, and it's been remixed into surround a number of times. So there's a lot of variations. There's a lot of Ziggy out there. Everybody seems to have their favorite, but man, oh man, this is one of those those cuttings I now swear by. This really makes the album come to life. Even if you're like me and you've been a fan for years, and it's one of your favorite albums of all time. I've listened to Ziggy Stardust more times than I can count, but this one just takes it to a whole other level, and it literally feels like you're right there in 1972 when this stuff was brand new. So as always, please comment with your thoughts below, and just I had to make a video specifically about this because I was just so completely blown away at finally being able to have this particular 60/40 matrix copy that I've been trying to get really since about 2010, or even 2009. So it's been a long while. Again, really when I got into record collecting full on, and much earlier. So this has been a long time coming, and just an amazing deal. So I couldn't pass up. And again, this is one grail off the checklist. So as always, thank you so very much for watching, and always keep hunting for those rare record grails out there. You never know when one will turn up at an actual affordable price.